Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining me and Sam this evening, or daytime, or what time is it where you are, Sam?
It's 1:30 p.m. in Dubai.
Oh, that is so cool. And on that happy note, actually, if you're in the live chat, pop in the live chat where you're watching from. That'd be super awesome to know. Thank you, Sam, so much for joining me to discuss Chapter 7 of Rule 1 by Phil Town. We've been going through this book chapter by chapter every week and kind of breaking it down and pulling out some of the interesting parts. So I'm so stoked to have you here, Sam.
No, Claire, the pleasure is all mine. I'm super excited to be talking with you. And, I lived in Australia for a few years. So if any of my Australian friends are watching, I'm really chuffed. I'm super excited about it. Americans, chuffed means excited. So no, I think it's such an awesome book, and I think probably it's the best chapter. Maybe, I don't know. I feel special because you said let's do chapter 7, and like seven's my favorite number, and talking about management is so important. So I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, awesome. And just a little bit of a brief, like how Sam and I got to know each other. We've kind of been fighting over who was stalking who first. Because I was like going through the internets and I actually stumbled upon a comment of yours, Sam, on Investing with Tom, which is another awesome YouTube channel that maybe I should link it. I will link it here after we're finished. And I watched a bunch of your videos, like I binge watched your videos, and then you sent me a message, and
I did.
the rest is history. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing.
I know, it's great. I was like, I really like your videos. Will you be my friend? And you were like, sure.
And I was so excited because I like recently moved to Adelaide from being in Melbourne for 10 years, and I was like, I could use another friend. That's fantastic. So
sure.
that's, yeah, it's awesome. How good is YouTube? So yes, oh, cool. We've got Nina McCann is watching from Mum and Dad's apartment at Glenelg. That is very beautiful. Thank you very much, everyone, for who's there for joining us. It's very, very lovely. And yeah. Okay. Let's talk about Chapter 7 of Rule 1 by Phil Town.
Right,
first of all, I'd love to know, Sam, like, how did you first come across this book? Like, what's your investing journey so far been like?
Oh man, it's so I'm really lucky. So I am blessed to have a wonderful mother-in-law, and we've got a great relationship. I'm really lucky in that way. And
Same.
she had found Rule 1 herself, like probably maybe 5 years before me and Chris ever picked it up. And in the best fashion, you know how good mother-in-laws, like, they give you good guidance, but they're not pushy about it. It's like she let us come to it on our own. But basically, she said like, oh, listen, this is a really good book. And Chris's mom is like very, very intelligent. Like she's great with numbers and great, like that's where Chris got his engineering brain from, is definitely from his mom. And yeah, anyway, so long story short, she gave us the book. We didn't really look at it for like a year. We just kind of ignored it as like, oh, it's a mom book gift. Who cares? And then we had been living in Australia, and to try, I'll try to do it quickly. Sorry, I'm a talker. But so I got my master's degree. We moved to Australia because my mom's a Kiwi. She's from New Zealand. And so this was like right at the end of the global financial crisis. So it was just a scary time to graduate from college with a lot of student debt. And so I was like, why don't we look at either moving to New Zealand or Australia and having a bit of an adventure? So me and Chris did that. We had graduated from college. We were earning good salaries. We were in these great career kind of jobs. And we had been living in Australia for like coming up on 2 years, and we just didn't have any money in our bank account. Even though we were earning good salaries, we weren't saving anything because our lifestyle, our expenses was matching our salary. And so even though we were working really hard, we just weren't saving anything. So it just kind of gave us a wake up call. We just started thinking like, oh man, we're getting close to being in our 30s. And luckily, Chris is a bit older than me, so when I was in my 20s, I got to get the benefit of him being in his 30s, and like he kind of pulled me along on that financial epiphany to be like, yo, 40 is going to be here before we know it. we need to start saving,
especially for
anyway,
him.
Totally. He's going to kill me after for making everyone think that he's so old. We're only 6 years apart, so he's not that much older. But anyway, we finally read the book. It really resonated with us. In fact, more so than some of the other books, like people will say like, oh, I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and that's what changed my mindset. This was actually the first book for us that changed our mindset. So if it wasn't for this book, we wouldn't be where we are now. So this is the one that really made us start thinking about like, whoa, we need to have multiple income streams. We need to take control over our own investment portfolio. We didn't even realize things like in the US, if you have a job, you are invested in the stock market if you have a 401k. And a lot of people don't even like realize that. And it's like, if you have a 401k, somebody's managing that money. And if you're not self-managing, it means some ding dong at some financial firm is. So it was like just kind of realizing how inflation takes your money in the long term because it reduces your buying power. So it was just all these like ideas in the book. I was like, well, my head's exploding. We really need to get control over our finances, and we need to just not be afraid to learn about it, So yeah. I love Philtown. I love this book. It's really, it's very cheesy to say, but it really did change our lives. So
that's so good. I've just seen a comment here from Adam for which you've just answered, I feel like, for both Sam and Claire. For what reason did you both choose to learn about and apply value investing? Is rule number 1 where it started for the both of you? It sounds like yes.
For me it was, but I think for you, yeah.
Yeah, well, it was, so rule 1, well, I first read The Barefoot Investor a few years ago. Have you read The Barefoot Investor, Sam?
No, Claire, but I'm going to because you like it so much. So it's on my next book for this month to read. I'm stoked. I'm excited to read it.
Yeah, cool. So I read that book and it like just blew my mind because all of a sudden I realized that there was a possibility that my financial future could be bright because I was in a lot of debt. And I read the book and just instantly like my perception changed, like my mindset changed. I realized it was totally possible for me to like over the long term to pay off that debt like slowly but surely. And once I had started doing that, I realized, because the Barefoot Investor talks about investing in property, and the price of property in Australia, particularly in Melbourne where I was living at the time, it's a little bit like, okay, cool. Well, I'll be able to save up a deposit in about 70 years. And like, with money in a high interest savings account, making 0.8% a year. So I realized that I needed to do something else and that there had to be some other way. I'd heard about investing and I just started looking on YouTube, actually, like how to start investing. And I came across a really awesome channel that is now called New Money. I don't know if you've stumbled upon Brandon's videos. They're super awesome as well. And he raved and raved about this book. And I read it and I was like, oh my goodness, oh my golly gosh. And I saw a way forward. I saw a way to potentially save for a house deposit in a way that is not 0.8% a year. And obviously when you're investing in shares, it's possible for it to go up and down. And when the time comes that you want to buy a house, maybe it's not a good time to sell your shares. And then I thought, oh no, what? I'll just wait. If that happens, I'll just wait. So that was kind of a very long-winded answer to that question.
Long-winded answers are my favorite kind.
We're so good at chatting. This might be a little bit of a long one, everyone. We're already at 10 minutes, so that's good. Should we start talking about chapter 7 now?
I think we should. And we can get off track many times.
Absolutely. And if any questions come up as we're going through this, make sure you pop them. Yes, Nina McCann, rambles for life. Um, that's a comment here. I don't know if you can see that, Sam. It's, yeah, rambling is really, really beautiful. So chapter 7.
Chapter 7. Where you want to start, Claire?
I want to start by talking about what it is. So chapter 7 is all about, so we've been through the first 2 M's of Philtown's 4 M's. The first one is meaning, so making sure a company has a meaning to you and it aligns with your values. The second is, what's the second one?
The second one is a moat, so a durable competitive advantage.
That's right. A durable competitive advantage. So we've done that. I was obviously paying a lot of attention. And so now the third M is management. So it's super important to understand the management of a company to make sure it's not going to fail in the long run, and to have a really great CEO is really, really valuable. So this chapter is all about understanding management, what makes management good and what makes management not good. So yeah, I found it a really, really valuable chapter. So the first little thing that I think is really interesting to talk about is the idea of having a bag, a big audacious goal. And could you talk about that for a bit, Sam? That'd be awesome.
Sure, I'm happy to do so. So I think it's really interesting. So Philtown essentially talks about how there's certain pillars of leadership. And I think me and Claire will talk more about them as the conversation goes on. But this one in particular, the Big Audacious Goal, is this idea that you want somebody at the head of your ship, right? Like if the company is a ship, you want that captain to be pointing that ship in a direction that is going to help the company grow. And he calls it a big audacious goal. So it's like, what is that vision that they have for the company? You know, you don't want a CEO, because remember, when we're value investors, what we're looking at is we're looking for a long-term investment that we can buy now at a discount to what we think that future value is going to be. And in order for a company to hit that future value, it's going to have to grow. It can't just stagnate. And so the captain of that ship or the CEO has got to have a goal that is going to take that company in that direction to help them grow over time. And Phil talks about different kinds of goals. There can be goals that is like expansion goals. There can be goals that is like what they call going like deeper instead of wider. So it's like, we know that we're experts in this particular niche of the industry, and so we're going to go drill deeper into our niche, and we're going to offer more products and things like this. And then there's also this idea of like big audacious goals, which potentially have good social impact. So it's like, you know, we want to do this for this amount of people. And so just having that big audacious goal and being transparent about it, you know, communicating that big audacious goal in terms of a leader sharing their vision and motivating their employees, that's also really important. So Phil talks about how this is one of the things that he always looks for with a CEO. And if they don't have a big audacious goal that they're happy to talk about, he sees that as a red flag. And I agree.
And I also thought it was really interesting. I think he talks about like if you go onto the Google machine and you look for it, you look for, if you can't find it, if it's not clear, then it probably doesn't exist. It probably means that it's a CEO that doesn't really care about that much other than, you know, obviously their compensation potentially. The other thing that is a red flag that Philtown talks about in this chapter is insider trading activity. And I thought this was super duper interesting to think about. And I had no idea or understanding about what insider trading is. Would you mind explaining to people who are watching what insider trading really is?
I can try. definitely jump in and interrupt me if you feel. But no, I think in its most simple term, or if the most simple definition is the idea that if you are in a position of power or decision making for these big companies that are publicly traded, that you have information that you may be able to leverage to help yourself, but potentially screw over other people. So like some examples would be, for example, if a CEO knows that their company is about to merge with other companies, and that's private, that hasn't become public information, they might know that in 1 month this thing is going to happen and it's going to shoot their shares through the roof and go up. So they might buy more shares, or the opposite of that, if they know that something bad is happening. So for example, if one of their people on their finance team gives them a forecast report and they're like, yo, Q4, things are going to be really bad. We are doing terrible next quarter. And then they start selling their shares because they know that as soon as that information is made public, it's going to drive the share prices down. So it's really important. And this is really, like Phil talks a lot about ethics, and like you had mentioned before, Claire, like the values of a company, does it align with your personal values? You can really judge a CEO's ethics by like if they're doing this insider trading. And definitely insider trading, like there's areas that are like illegal, and that's regulated by different government agencies.
It seems very much like it should all be completely illegal. That is, but I mean, I guess then how do people just sell? Because this is the other thing, like that I found interesting is if they're selling like a little bit, then that's one thing, and there's nothing necessarily wrong. That doesn't necessarily mean anything. But if they're selling like half of their shares, then it's like probably time to also exit.
Well, it's like, to be honest, it is impossible to do anything with 100% certainty, because at the end of the day, like what we're trying to do when we invest in companies, number one, we're thinking of it as it's not just a symbol on our computer screen. We're actually thinking, you know what, I'm going to become an owner of this business. And even if I only own this teeny amount, I'm still an owner of that business. But ultimately, when you are thinking about a CEO, that CEO is a custodian for your money. You're entrusting them to take care of your money and to grow it and to protect it from being lost. And that's like a really important responsibility. And so when you think about it that way, you want to look at somebody who has that integrity. And I think, Claire, just to circle back to this idea about like insider trading activity, I'm kind of laughing. It's like I was obsessed with the show Suits when it first aired. And a lot of their episodes deal with Wall Street. And for sure, like in terms of legality, a lot of it is like, well, what can you prove? Like in order for something to be illegal and held accountable, you have to prove it. But I think you never know with 100% certainty. And just being aware of insider trading, just so that you can like see it's not 100% black and white. Like you can't just go on and be like, oh my God, this CEO sold 20,000 shares. What does that mean? Do I need to jump ship? It just means like you need to research it. You need to look into it. You need to try to figure out like, okay, well, what's going on? And sometimes you can find the information and sometimes you can't, but it is really important to be aware of it and to look for those red flags so that you can understand the business that you're investing in and understand the person that is that custodian for your money. I think that's kind of my take on it.
So if it was like if it was a company that you and Chris were researching and you saw that there was a lot of insider trading going on, would that just be a like, no?
I don't want to say it would be 100% deal breaker. What it would be is what we would do is we would put like a sticky note on it where it's like research more. Like dig into this. Now, on the other hand, if we saw that a CEO had been appointed to a company and maybe at his last company, he had been indicted or was being investigated for insider trading in the past, I would be like, yo, that's a red flag. You know what I mean? So it's like, you've got to look at the person and see like, okay, have they showed poor ethical decisions in the past? And could that come back to bite me in the future?
Yeah. We've got an interesting comment here from Christopher Miles. I love seeing management buying shares when the stock price is going down. It gives me confidence in the business when the management team has confidence in the business. Yeah, that's such a good point. That's so interesting. Oh, yeah, it's exciting. It like when you do all of this work and you empower yourself by doing all of this work, then you can be excited by stuff like that happening, and you can be excited when things happen, like when the price of the shares goes down, and like when the share price goes down, you can go like see it as a really positive, exciting thing as well.
Well, and that you're so right, Claire. And like just to circle back to Chris's comment, it's one of those things where the whole like everything that Phil teaches us, right, is you want to identify wonderful businesses that you can buy at an affordable or at a discounted price. And sometimes it's not the business that makes the shares go down, the prices, it's the market itself, like different things that are happening in the world. And so like what Chris is saying is, you know, if the share price is dropping and management is buying, yeah, if they're buying, then it's like, oh, they think the same thing that I do, you know, because it's like if we're invested in a company and we see the shares going down, and it's clear, it's so hard sometimes. Like, then what do they say the rule is? It's like the rule of investing physics is that as soon as you buy a share, it's going to go down. Like, just expect that.
Yeah.
And you're just like, oh my God, it's going down. But it's like having that discipline to say like, no, I have valued this company. I understand its growth potential. I believe in this business. And over the long term, I do think that it's going to grow. So if share prices are dropping, that just means, excellent, I can buy more. Like, let me just keep buying more. Let me keep buying more. And eventually it's going to turn up and we're going to see all those benefits. And I think like, you know, if the CEO is also doing that, it's like he believes in this company, he or she is going to see it growing in the future. So it's just kind of like validating our position.
Yeah. And like we saw, I saw heaps of that happening last year. Like when a lot of things that I had just started learning about value investing around March last year when that thing happened, or started happening. And when the prices, so I'd started researching companies and I'd started learning about all of this stuff. And then when that happened, like, well, obviously it's terrible, terrible circumstances, but when the prices were going down, it was like a very, very exciting thing to see as a new investor, like terrible circumstances. But to be able to get in then, and I had money invested in ETFs at the time, and seeing that go down and knowing I didn't have to worry about that, and that's just part of it.
But you know, Claire, that's like the fact that you got to that headspace so early on is really like a blessing. Like, because it takes a long time. And I remember, like, if you would have talked to me like maybe 9 or 10 years ago. I'm really bad with my memory, but this was, I want to say like I can't remember, maybe 2011. Sorry, my years are going to be wrong, but Ford shares, the company Ford, trucks and cars or whatever, it's an American company. It was at $1 a share. And I remember Chris was just like fresh out of college and he's like, hey, babe, I think, maybe we should buy some shares. I mean, Ford's only $1. And I was like, no, don't invest. It's too risky. And so like, that's something he still gives me a hard time about, because like at the time we finally bought into Ford, I think at like $5 a share. And then it climbed to like 55 before we sold it, so it was like, I think that the more you research, the more knowledge you have, that brings you a level of comfort and security. It's like anything, right? Like if you had to go out and play like a concert piano show, if you had been practicing that song for like 10 years before the concert, you're going to feel much more comfortable than if you just had to go on stage after your first piano lesson. You know what I mean? So it's like just taking that time to research gives you that security and that peace of mind. And your mindset is such a foundation for your success in investing.
Yeah. Absolutely. That does remind me of a question that came through on the internets, on Instagram. On the interweb. What books would you I think this is a really good, I'm going to write this down. I've got a pen handy. Sam, what books would you recommend to people who are just starting out learning? Like, I mean, I think it's safe to say we would both recommend Rule Number 1 by Phil Town.
Definitely.
And what have been some other things that have really helped you to build your confidence in investing?
Yeah. Okay. Great question. I'm turning around and I'm looking at my bookshelf because I've got all my favorite ones there. So I would say if I had to pick only three, I would pick The Dondo Investor by Monish Pabrai. And the reason I like it is because he's like, he's got this, his main takeaway is like, heads I win, tails I don't lose much. And also like
Yeah.
he's just got like a good vibe and a good like holistic approach to value investing. The other book that I would recommend is Invested, which is Phil Town's daughter and him. And they like it's number one, I like the fact that it's a woman's voice because we don't hear that very often. So I personally really like that. I think, Claire, that's something that you and me share. We're like, more girls, come on.
Yeah, it'd be so good. If anyone has any recommendations of books written by people who are not men about finance, investing, any of that, please pop them in the comments or in the live chat. That'd be awesome. Love some recommendations.
For sure.
It's such a.
That was two. This is my third one.
Yeah.
My third one is The Education of a Value Investor by Guy Spear. So I think those are three. And I like those because like if you're just getting started, they're very digestible. Like it really breaks things down in a practical way. They're easy to digest. And of course, listen, I'm really biased. The only kind of investing that we do is value investing. So, like for me, it's about, that's my jam. I just like, that's what I believe in. So all three of those books are in that lane.
Yeah, play it safe. That's so good.
Here's
an excellent comment. Karen, Sara, my mum, yay, go girls.
Yes.
Go mum. Mum's so good. It's so nice.
Look, this is mine. This is my mum. She's on my coffee cup. Can you see it?
That is so cute.
Isn't she the cutest?
I love that very much.
Her.
That's so nice. So your mum's here on your mug. My mum's there. Nina's mum's here as well. How beautiful, how gorgeous. We love that. Good job. All right. So I wanted to we'll jump back to the book. Something that I thought was very, very interesting to look into is the CEO compensation. As like another potential red flag. And I read a really interesting article about like all these CEOs that have just absolutely been, I should have had a reference for that, but I don't. But a lot of CEOs take the piss, it would seem. And that is a really interesting, an interesting thing, because when we are, and Phil Town talks about this in chapter 7, when we are invested in a company, whatever the CEO and the management, whatever they're taking home, their take-home pay, in a way that comes out of our pockets. So like obviously they should be rewarded for hard work. Like they should be paid for the work that they do. But there will be times when a company has performed really, really terribly, and
they get crazy bonuses.
Yeah, it's like, oh, sorry to all the shareholders, but we are still getting a few more yachts this year.
Or even worse, when they use, like, the thing that makes my skin crawl, like when we think about like the big bank bailouts and like what happened with the real estate market crash, these companies, like especially like these big bank companies, they got bailouts from the government, which taxpayers paid for. And like essentially their companies were like filing for bankruptcy, and they were taking multi-million-dollar bonuses for these golden parachutes. And it was like, how is the world functioning? But yeah, you're so right. It's like that red flag of, are they incentivized to perform for the shareholders? Like, are they shareholder centric? And it's like, are they going to get huge bonuses regardless of their performance? That's a red flag.
Yeah, absolutely. I realized as I was going through this chapter how much like how many shortcuts I've kind of taken previously when I've been researching companies. And So I thought I'd go back and look at one of the companies that I previously had money invested in, which I don't anymore, which is a huge bummer. It's Square. So Square is a company that have made card payments. Like, they've evolved so much since I first put money into that company, but they take card payments that they've made taking card payments accessible to small business owners, which I just thought was such a brilliant idea. And it's a great company, in my opinion. But we are not financial advisors, and blah, blah, read that.
Blah, 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 blah.
So I thought it would be interesting to go back, and I didn't want to do this with something that I'm currently invested in because that feels a little bit weird. So I thought I'd go back and look at what the CEO of Square is being compensated. And the CEO of Square is Jack Dorsey, who you may know from such companies as Twitter. And I was very, very interested to find out that $3. So Jack Dorsey, as Chief Executive Officer at Square, Jack Dorsey made $3 in total compensation. Of this total $3 was received as a salary, $0 was received as a bonus, $0 was received in stock options, $0 was awarded as stock, and $0 came from other types of compensation. And I just thought, oh my goodness, what a little ripper. Like, obviously, he isn't like strapped for cash. So like, obviously,
he's not living in a box under a bridge, is what you're saying, right?
No, he's got like a few billion going on. But he is obviously, because he could still be like, no, I need heaps more money. And he doesn't take it. And I thought that was such a cool thing to read, that he just doesn't take it. And in fact, he gives it to I read that he gave away like a third of his wealth to like help people out over the past year with everything that's been going on. He just seems like an upstanding citizen. Let me know in the comments if you completely disagree. But yeah, I thought that was so interesting. Nina McCann says, Jack Dorsey for King of World, please. Chris, lol, his income tax, 26 cents. Good on him. Yeah, you know, opinions. We've all got opinions. But yeah, I thought that was so interesting and so cool. Just a good thing to think about when we're considering investing in a company. Yeah, and the other thing that I wanted to quickly cover, I know we've been in here for a little while, is just like the transparency of CEOs.
Yeah.
That was like, stuff's going to go wrong in anything. Stuff is going to go wrong. And all that we really want as owners of shares in a company is to be told. Yep. Like, to have someone be honest with us, and then we have the decision whether we want to get out of it or stay in it or whatever. And that's something that you can see really clearly in the annual reports of companies. So when you take the time and you bother to read them and find out about it and understand them, that's something that really jumped out at me. Is like, that's what I want in any relationship, is transparency.
That's it. It's like any relationship. And even if you think like, I think most of us at some point or another, like, we've had 9-to-5 jobs. And even if you just like relate it to your personal experience, you want a boss who takes like responsibility when things go wrong. You know, when bad things happen, they have to be honest and say, it's my fault, I'm accountable for it. And so like, that's kind of language that you want to look for. And they want to give credit to their team, right? So it's like Warren Buffett, he's like the prime example of that, right? Like he always says, he's like, everybody who works for me is smarter than me. I let them do
Yeah.
their things. Like, we are successful because of their leadership decisions. And when things aren't going well, he's like, things aren't going well. Here's why they aren't going well. And here's what I'm going to do to fix it. And it's like that
Yeah.
clear communication is such, yeah, this is what you want to look for.
Yeah. Absolutely. And Philtown bangs on about Warren Buffett heaps as well,
Yeah.
as we all do. And he talks about like reading Warren Buffett's letters to the shareholders, which you can access for like completely free on the Berkshire Hathaway website, which is so cool. I know they're in a big binder behind you there, Sam. And they're also
yellow one.
this chap has very kindly collated them all in this book in like essay form. So it's makes it super easy to read and digest. But this book, so it's the essays of Warren Buffett, Lessons for Investors and Managers. I'm just an investor, not a manager. And yeah, it's really, really wonderful to read that book. So I would actually say that's a book that I would recommend to beginners as well. In response to that question, we're going to wrap it up pretty soon, but if anyone has any questions that they want to pop in the live chat, we will do our best to get to some of them. But there is one that came through on Instagram as well, which is, Sam, what are 3 things you would recommend for people just starting out with value investing?
Okay, I can answer. Do you want to go first though? Because I've been talking so much, and I monopolized the book question. So do you want to answer this one first?
We have both been talking a fair bit. I think everyone will agree with that. But yeah, I mean, for me, it's just been about educating myself, by reading books, listening to podcasts. Phil Town and his daughter Danielle Town, who Sam was speaking about earlier, they wrote the book together, Invested. Well, he helped her out and she did probably most of the work. But they have a really, really beautiful podcast together. It's beautiful because it's like really nice to hear 2 points of view. And if you go back to the very beginning of that podcast, you can hear her learning how to do it. And I find that so beautiful to go back and listen to. And because I still would consider myself to be a beginner investor, it's wonderful to hear her asking all of the questions that I have. So that podcast, listening to podcasts, watching YouTube videos. Sam has a wonderful, wonderful YouTube channel that is currently linked in the description of this video. So make sure you go and check out some of her videos. And Sam's husband, Chris, also has some great videos on there. They do it together. What a beautiful, beautiful thing. Oh,
he's actually being attacked by a primate in this photo. This is the best picture I've ever taken in my life. So I like to
that is very, very funny. That's so, so good. And also another photo of Chris is that one right there. So that's good. Guy. Yeah, so that's what I would say. Educate yourself as much as you possibly can by reading and watching, and also by just not being too afraid to just get started. Because I think you can psych yourself out a lot and go, oh, I need to do and yes, you need to research things, but also just like throw a little bit in. And again, this is not financial advice, but I think it's important to just get started. And then you also benefit from the power of compound interest, and you get to really, really see it grow over time. And it's getting started younger, or like as soon as you can, so that you can get the mistakes out of the way. Yes. Because I think they are going to happen.
For sure. Claire, I think that's such good advice. So the things I would add on to that, I 100% agree with you. It's like, get started, do your research, just dig into it. I would say that the 3 things that helped us the most in terms of transforming our finance and like going from being beginners to where we are now is, number 1, committing to living below your means. I think that there's no substitute for that hard work. And it's like, in order to live below your means, you have to have a budget, you have to track your expenses, you have to stick to it. You know, you've got to have leftover money at the end of every month to grow that nest egg and to see the results of compounding. I think
Absolutely.
the other like very practical tip that totally changed things for us is paying ourselves first. So the idea that instead of waiting to the end of the month to see whatever's left over, like that's what you put in your investment portfolio, to make a plan. And as soon as your paycheck comes, to take it out at the beginning so that you don't even have the opportunity to spend it. So it's basically like prioritizing your investment portfolio the same way you would prioritize paying your rent or buying food. Like they're on equal level. And then I think I would say the third one for me as well too is like being really honest and self-reflective about like what goals you want to achieve. And I think just like we said that we want our CEOs to have a big audacious goal, I think you should set a big audacious goal for yourself. It's like, you know, this is really what I want in life, and don't be afraid to set that goal, because that is really the first step. It's like once you have the goal, you can start taking those steps to get there and make an action plan and take that path. So those would be my three that I would add on to the ones that you said as well.
Yeah. Oh, that's so awesome. And it actually reminds me a lot of a video that I saw on YouTube today that you made, Sam. So if you go, that video was so good. Sam put a video up.
Thank
I think
you.
that was today or yesterday.
I think you like me, so you're a little biased, but
I do really like you. But I think your advice is so wonderful. And it's like 9 habits to develop when you're in your
something
30s.
Like
is
that
something? It's called something like that. But it's really a brilliant video. And I highly recommend, if you've made it this far, after this, jump onto Sam's Sam's channel. Earn more, spend less, invest the rest. Linked below. And have a watch of that video and watch all of Sam's videos. That'd be great.
And watch all of Claire's videos because they're the best.
Watch all of them.
Yeah, I mean,
no, you're the best. No, you're the best, Sam. No, you are. All right. Well, I reckon that probably about wraps things up. I just want to say such a massive thank you to you, Sam, for joining me. It's such a treat. It's always such a pleasure to spend time with you over the internet. It's so good. And maybe one day we will in person. Won't that be a lovely little treat?
That would be amazing.
And thank you so much to everyone who has joined us here for the live stream and everyone who's watching this in the replay. Make sure you like this video to help get it out to more people. And if you're interested in learning more about investing, make sure you subscribe to my channel and Sam's channel. And yeah, have a bloody ripper of a rest of your day.
Thank you so much for having me, Claire. This has been a blast. I really enjoyed it.
Oh, it's been a treat. Bye, everybody.